16 Minutes of Care is a podcast based on the CARE principles, a strategic framework that reveals how brands create impact by caring and, as a result, grow their business. In each episode, Isabel welcomes a company executive who explains how CARE has helped their business grow successfully and sustainably.
Very excited to welcome Klaus Thompson. He is one of the founders of Coffee Collective, a micro-roastery based in Denmark. They are quite the game changer in the coffee industry on several levels. They take particularly good care of people. But Klaus is also a world champion barista, so I'm sure that there's reasons enough to learn more from him. Welcome, Klaus.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Very happy to have you here. So you founded Coffee Collective with two other partners already back in 2007.
Yeah.
It's a micro-roastery, its own coffee shops. Could you explain a little bit for the people who are not so in the coffee industry, what is micro-roastery?
Yeah, so we are a small roastery compared to the big roasteries that roast for supermarkets or the big Italian brands. We focus very much on specialty coffee, so smaller farms, smaller lots, and selling directly to consumers. And in our business, we also have our own import of green coffee. So it's a little bit trying to not become too big, but try to focus on quality.
For some people, specialty coffee might be considered, oh, that's for young people and for hipsters, and it's all about the look, but it's not. There's a real difference in the coffee quality, right?
Yeah, I think when you talk about a specialty coffee, there's some people who think it's just special if it has a story like Kopi Luwak or Jamaica Blue Mountain, but for us it's the taste quality. It's a product of what the farmer has done, what the roaster have done, and how it's brewed at the end by a qualified barista. So I think it's a quality appreciation that is not just for young and hip people, it actually goes very broad. We certainly see that in our coffee shops, that the demographic is really broad. We have people who have retired and who come into the shop, as well as like first-time coffee drinkers. So it spans really broad.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You started back in 2007. You were one of the pioneers in this specialty coffee segment. You mentioned right before we started recording, over the last year it really boomed. Do you really see a change in how more people appreciate specialty coffee now?
Yeah, and I've been working in coffee for about 20 years now, and for the first many years of my career as a barista, people were saying, oh, it's just such a niche with this specialty coffee, it'll never be big. And then suddenly there's coffee shops all over, and it's suddenly a very big niche, if it's still a niche. And I see like in Copenhagen, there's many roasteries now, there's a lot more coffee shops, there's a lot of excitement around coffee. And I don't think anyone in Denmark now doesn't have someone in their social circle who isn't a coffee geek. Like there's always someone they know who will be hand brewing at home or investing in an espresso machine. So I feel like it's reaching a lot of people now, which has always been the ambition for us, to not have it being something exclusive, but rather something inclusive that could invite everyone into this fantastic world of higher quality coffee that also benefits farmers on the other end of the global supply chain.
Totally. We will talk about care for your suppliers in a little moment. I would like to start by taking good care of your own people, your employees. You have grown fast. You have 120 people working for your organization now. That ranges from baristas to you have a marketing manager now to people working in the office. How do you take good care of them?
I think for us, it's always started with that when we founded our company, me, Peter, Kasper, who are my co-founders, we all started as baristas. So we have a very inherent respect for the craftsmanship of the baristas. We know how hard it is to stand on your feet 8 hours a day and make coffee and give good service and put on a smile even though you've had a rough day. And I think that for us we know how important those people are, and the respect for that and knowing that we have to take good care of people have always been sort of a core premise for the company that then spreads into the roastery, into the office, into the bakery and all the other parts of the business. And then it's also been because a core value for us founding the company was that we wanted to create a workplace for life. We didn't want to just create a business that we would grow big and then sell it. We wanted to create a business where we could see ourselves being in it for the rest of our lives and hopefully at some point give it on to a new generation. And I think when you have that as a core value, you make different choices. And you know how important it becomes for yourself and for your colleagues that every day you come into work, you should be looking forward to it. You should feel a sense of joy in your work. I mean, if that suddenly goes out the window, then it doesn't really matter. Then we're not doing things right. Mm-hmm. So I think that's at the core of why we think it's so essential to take good care of our people.
Do you believe, because if I understand well, your business model is balanced in people, planet and prosperity? So you don't just go for growth and big economical numbers and profit. Is that something that employees today value?
Definitely. I really think, and I think that's actually not just today, that's been since I started my professional career, is that you need a sense of purpose in your work. If your only purpose is to make profit for shareholders, I think it becomes meaningless for people to go to work. You need to have some other kind of purpose, and it can be providing happy smiles for someone, or providing some kind of basic need for people. And in our line of work, there's a lot of value in what we do, because you see the smile on the guest's face with every cup of coffee you serve. You get a sense that, hey, I'm actually serving not just their caffeine need, but a social need, a need for, social interaction and, a warmth and a service experience. And while you do that, you can also have a sense that you're actually providing value for someone who really needs that value at the other, as I mentioned, the other end of the value chain, which I'm sure we'll get back to.
We'll get to
but
that.
I think that sense of purpose it makes it so much more meaningful to do your job every day.
Yes, I understand. Talking about taking care of clients, you know that my boyfriend is Rob from Cafe Nation, who has the same type of company, but then in Belgium.
And who I respect a lot, actually.
And you're one of his gods, so it's great that we are together for 16 years. And in the coffee industry, the specialty coffee industry, I had the chance to travel with him. It's such an amazing, open and collaborative community. Yeah. So I was always very surprised. But one of the things I would like to hear from you, one of the things that always strikes me when I go, for instance, to a Cafe Nation, that the care for clients, it's so huge, and you play such a social role in the lives of so many people. How do you do that at Coffee Collective? Because you have the same.
Yeah, I think it's really, and I think it's something we have developed over time as well. Like, I think for us, it's always been about including more people into this universe of coffee, because we find it incredibly exciting. And we have this gut feeling that if we're excited about this, there must be other people out there who can be equally excited about it. So the more people we can invite in and show that excitement and let them taste these coffees and hear the stories about how they came to be, the more magical it'll become to more people. I also think we've had at certain points, rougher times where we accidentally became a little snobby, and we were trying to educate people, and maybe it created this sense that we were better than people. And I'm talking not just about us, but as an industry as well. And I think that that happened for a while, and it got this bad attention about the snobby barista, and why does it have to be so fancy? And we worked really hard on trying to move past that point, trying to say we don't want to be snobs. If people want to put milk or sugar in their coffee, go ahead. Let them first enjoy it whatever way they enjoy it, and then let us try to create conversations, invite in, and then slowly you can talk about, maybe you don't need sugar, maybe you don't need milk, maybe you should try this geisha, maybe you think you don't like acidic coffees, but let's try it out, give you a little taste or something. And I think that it comes from a deep a deep care that if we can get people to buy in on this idea, we can do more. We can create more and more exciting experiences that will create more value that we can then bring down the supply chain.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let's talk about taking care of stakeholders, suppliers. In your case, it's very important for you to do direct trading, to really buy from specific coffee farmers and buy it directly. That might seem, for people who don't know the industry, something very easy, but I know it's not at all.
Yes, exactly. And it's something that it's also very confusing to people, because it's almost like every roastery out there telling the same stories about how they buying directly and engaging with farmers. But in reality, most of the coffee is sold through exporters and importers and so on. And for us, it was actually a founding principle that we only want to buy directly from farmers and really try to engage ourselves more in their work. Hence the name, the Coffee Collective. It's not just because it's a collective of 3 guys starting the company. It's because we see it as a collective effort from the farmer over the roaster to the barista to work on creating these coffee experiences. And buying directly both had the benefit that we could ensure that payment went directly to the farmers.
And maybe just a side note, that maybe, again, not many people know, a lot of coffee farmers are paid very poorly. They can hardly survive.
Yeah.
So it's very important what you do to create a sustainable living for these coffee farmers, right?
Exactly. I think a lot of farmers around the globe are not even getting their cost of production met, which seems absurd, but they're kind of locked in a modern day slavery. And so for us, it's really key, and it's very it's a basic thing we have to do, is to bring more value out to farmers, especially if we want to have these amazing tasting coffees. We really need to incentivize that. We need to put more money out to the farmers and make sure that it gets to them, that we're not just paying more for coffee to an importer that is, raking in all the proceeds, and an exporter who's also adding, twice to the price. And that's why buying directly was so instrumental to us, so we can have a contract that shows exactly what we paid to the farmer, but also that we can have a face-to-face meeting with the people producing the coffee. So part of the direct trade philosophy is that we go to meet every farmer at least once a year. We try also to bring some of them to Denmark to show them our roastery and have them meet our customers, because we really think that face-to-face meeting is such a strong tool, both in order for us to learn what actually creates these coffees, like how did they come to be, and to share those stories with our guests, so they can value the coffee even more. I think they value it more when they know how much work is behind it, but also so that we can give feedback and input back to the farmers on how does the coffee taste year after year. What are we looking for? What are our customers looking for? Is it more organic principles? Is it a different kind of taste? Did a certain processing method influence the coffee in a good or a negative way? And I think that whenever you have intermediaries, middlemen buying and selling the coffees, you're losing that direct communication line.
Yes.
And I think also another aspect is that a lot of the coffee farmers around the world, they never see what happens to their coffee. A lot of them are selling coffee cherries to a mill, and it kind of ends at that point. So they're never getting the feedback. And I usually tell our baristas that it's kind of equivalent to them making like latte art on a cappuccino, but never seeing the happy smile on a guest. And so I think the feedback to the farmers and the appreciation for their work is hugely important.
Yes, I understand. But what is also very important in what you do is that you're totally transparent about your price. So you completely, on your websites, you can see at how much you pay for a bag of coffee, how much you pay to the farmers. So it's completely transparent. You were one of the first to do that in the coffee industry. Meanwhile, some of the other coffee, specialty coffee shops and brands have followed. How important is that for you to be completely transparent?
Yeah, I think this kind of, as it's called, radical transparency is a great means to show both that we have nothing to hide, and it is kind of a weird thing. Like, imagine you went down to your local clothing shop and you could see in the back of the neck, what did it cost to produce this shirt? Maybe people would think like, that's ridiculous. Why am I paying so much? And that was, of course, the fear for us, putting this out and then you're charging a different number to consumers. But consumers are not stupid. They know that we have, you know, a lot of expenses to produce, you know, the roasted coffee and produce the drinks. They know that we have to make a profit. But by showing the open numbers, we can suddenly say we have nothing to hide. Look around the coffee industry. Who is willing to open their books and who is not? And it facilitates a dialogue with consumers about when you go to the supermarket and you're buying 4 bags of coffee for X amount of euros as an offer. How did the farmer benefit from that? You know, there's a consequence behind your actions as a consumer, that when you're just going for the cheap price, that has a rolling effect down the value stream. And it's a very negative, you know, race towards the bottom. It becomes a price pressure on every link in the chain, and the people suffering the most are the farmers. So by having that kind of transparency, we're hoping that people will ask questions and say, how do I vote with my wallet? How do I have actually a responsibility, and how can I take action as a consumer?
Do you see, because Scandinavian countries, there's a lot of coffee that's being drunk. It's a high coffee consumption.
Oh yes, yeah.
Do you see that the specialty coffee is putting pressure on the traditional coffee brands, and are they following your business model?
I think it's putting pressure because the people who started to drink specialty coffee also grow used to a certain taste quality, and it's kind of like once you've had that, you can't go back. And you know, the cheaper coffees, they're cheaper for a reason, they don't taste as good. But I also think that we have proven that people are willing to pay for coffee. Like, that's actually one of the, again, when we founded our company, we could see that people were willing to pay for coffee. It's not like they don't want to pay for it. They're willing to pay quite a lot of money for a bag of coffee because it's still relatively cheap compared to what you spend on wine or other products. Yeah. It's really cheap. So the money is there, but they're just not really getting to the farmers. And that's that kind of paradox that we want to flip around. And I think we're slowly starting to see a change. And I think over time there will be more and more pressure on the bigger companies to provide that kind of proof of, you know, when they say they're doing well, you know, they can't just hide behind a fair trade certification, which in my view is kind of like, that's like a below a minimum salary. That's where a farmer can survive on their production. That's not really a great incentive for your kids to say, oh yeah, you can survive on this, but there's not a future for you. And I think the bigger companies will be forced to say, well, you're going to have to pay more if you want quality coffee in the future.
And educating consumers to question companies is one of the great things you do. Thank you so much, Klaus, for this first episode. We will talk more in the second one. Thank you for the people at home. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Take care.
Want to create lasting impact with your brand while feeding sustainable growth? Check out thecareprinciples.com and see how we can help you. 16 Minutes of Care is an independent production from Isabel Verstraeten, brand strategist, founder of The Care Principles, and author of the book, Does Your Brand Care? Help us reach more companies who are looking for caring and sustainable growth by giving this podcast all the stars it deserves and by sharing it in your network. Thank you and take care.